Welcome back.
Hey guys.
What's up?
Welcome. So, Michael, I am not as sports savvy as you are, so I'm actually going to have you intro this interview so I don't sound like a total dweeb.
Well, I'm not as sports savvy as Woz because he's actually the professional. Woz is literally. I just have to say, let me just do a little behind the scenes nostalgia type of thing. 3-4 years ago, having like a drink at some like mediocre sports bar in Midtown Manhattan, Woz and I being like, this is cool. Like, we're doing some interesting stuff, but what are we going to do here? Like, we're totally broke.
Right.
Like, what's the next step? How does this actually advance?
Right.
And now, man, like, Woz is at The Athletic. He's co-hosting a show with David Aldridge, man. Come on. That inspired me in the same way. Because you said the same thing to me, like when I went to, did the thing with Lula in Brazil. I don't know. There's just these milestones that
100%.
As friends, it's very, very, very cool to see.
Yeah, I appreciate the words, man. And we did our show. I think it was it was Thursday. Me and DA did our show, and DA is just like, he's seen a lot, right? And even he is just like sort of beaten down by this to the point where he's just like, I don't even feel like talking about hoop right now, right? And right. DA's talking about, what is my role as a Black journalist? And I'm sitting here like, wow, I'm a Black journalist. Like journalist with a capital J. Like, I'm like, whoa, wait a second. Like, I actually have responsibilities here, like, to talk about more than just LeBron James and, Karl Anthony Towns' fadeaway jumper. Like, it becomes surreal in so many moments. But I think what Anna is referring to is, of all the professional sports leagues in America, the NBA's players seem to have a disproportionate influence over their working conditions than every other sports league. It's not even close. Like, the Baseball Players Association is a very powerful union, and I love the players union in baseball because they are so damn adversarial towards management and the ownership class, but individual players don't wield as much power as they do in the NBA. NFL's players union, forget about it, is a joke. They treat those guys like replaceable cogs in the football machine. And NHL, like, that sport's not even on ESPN anymore. They on ESPN Plus. But, and that's no disrespect to the hockey fans out there. They just don't wield as much influence. And I think, you can trace the sort of genesis of what we're now in as the modern NBA era, what people are now calling the player empowerment movement, back to the summer of 2010, when LeBron James left his team in Cleveland, decided to join forces with two of his friends, outside of any management, any agents, this is where we want to play. This is why we want to play here. We structured our contracts together 4 years ago so that we would be free agents at the same time, and we would get to choose our workplace. And that basically blew up the entire power structure of the NBA, because all of a sudden it became clear that the fortunes of these teams and these billionaires would be decided by individual players. Individual star players. And it's just had a domino effect where you saw it with Kevin Durant, you saw it with Kawhi Leonard last summer, where he has the Clippers and the Lakers basically under a barrel, trying to basically do whatever it took to get him on their team. And, I think what you've seen now manifested is that NBA players, specifically the superstars, who, unlike most sports, they just are so influential on the successes. An individual can be so influential on the success of his franchise that it's just natural that the power is going to flow to them. I think what you're seeing is that NBA players, they have such a say in their workplace conditions that you just don't see in the other American professional sports. And I think it's because they've realized their power, right? Like, they've realized it and they've used it to affect change in the dynamics of who controls what? Who does what? You see it in the Brooklyn Nets fired their coach, Kenny Atkinson, simply because their players straight up was like, he's not the guy for the job. Straight up and down. Now, again, the nature of the contracts in the NBA is that, if you're a coach and you sign a 5-year deal, if you get fired 2 years in, you're going to be paid out your full 5-year contract. So it's like, it sucks that the guy got fired, but he's going to get paid. His family's going to be straight. Everything's going to work out in the end. But, that's just an example to show you that everybody understands that I need to keep players. Players are the focus in this business. Now, I think as it relates to the context now, I think the next step is how they wield that power and the power that the industry that they work in other directions, right? Like, it's one thing to wear a t-shirt. It's another thing to be like, look, I'm going to sign here, James Dolan, with the New York Knicks, but I'd like to see some capital investment in these communities in the Bronx or in East New York or in Far Rockaway, or whatever the case may be, right? I think that's the next step in the evolution of player empowerment and what they do with the influence that they wield. Like, it's cool to get up on the ESPYs and be like, yo, cops need to stop killing people. It's cool to wear I Can't Breathe t-shirt pregame instead of your warm-up. Like, all of those things, much respect, and we love that they're happening. But I think the next step in the evolution of this is a realization that they can wield this power in many different directions. Like, of course, I love that players have the ultimate say in how franchises get run these days, because it's their physical labor that gets the seats in the stands, that gets the eyeballs on the TV, right? When it comes to their partners, when it comes to the ownership class, like, all they bring is capital. Like, it's not like these dudes bring some insane marketing expertise or some like they don't bring literally anything else but capital. And even then, a lot of these cats we're seeing in the global pandemic are a lot broker than they've ever led on. The Houston Rockets owner Tillman Fertitta took out a damn $300 million loan at 14% interest. He's so damn highly leveraged. And you're seeing like, man, these cats aren't as liquid, aren't as rich, aren't as powerful as they like to pretend that they are. So I just think the next step in this evolution, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but it's the players wielding this influence in many other directions.
It's such a good point. And it's kind of the antithesis of what we're experiencing in other cases. So for instance, in Inglewood, California, with the construction of that new stadium, what it ended up doing is it pushed out people who had lived in that community forever, their entire lives. Like, immediately you have real estate speculators coming in, investors coming in, buying up all this property, and inflating the property values there, inflating the rent there. And, we already have a disastrous housing crisis in this country, especially in Los Angeles. And it just further exacerbated the homelessness issue. And I never really thought about, what specific teams or what specific players could do to kind of leverage their star power to help protect the communities that they're, playing in, that they're based in.
100%. And I was talking to a colleague of mine, Marcus Thompson. He's a Bay Area native. He born and raised in East Oakland. And he now, he covers all of the local Oakland teams for The Athletic. And he told me he's talked to a bunch of heads of philanthropic organizations like the Warriors played for decades in Oracle Arena in Oakland. Now they get bought up by one of these venture capitalist types out in Silicon Valley. And let's face it, him and his crowd are just like, we're kind of slumming it here in Oakland. We need to do something in San Francisco. So they fought tooth and nail to get a parcel of land in San Francisco because obviously it's more posh. And that class of his peers are just like, oh, finally, I don't have to go over the bridge to go watch this glamorous team. I can just take a quick ride down to the waterfront and watch the Warriors. But part of that, and people at the time said, man, I hope this isn't lip service, was, yo, we're not leaving Oakland behind. We're moving the building, but we're going to continue to be here. And on Thursday, when we spoke to Marcus was like, all the people who work in philanthropy in Oakland said, yo, they never got more checks from the Warriors than since they moved to San Francisco, which is a beautiful thing. But that's something that needs to be sustained. I think that's something that NBA players need to take up as a responsibility, because let's face it, the money, the capital is there, right? And they have the influence and the power to make sure that these type of things are happening. And so I think that's the next step ultimately, right? Like, Joe Lacob, God bless him. He's actually kept that promise and is still putting investment in the Oakland community, even after they've moved on to their Shangri-La in San Francisco.
Do you think that there's an opportunity, like watching even The Last Dance, when Jordan won't play the baseball season because he's just like, I'm a union man. I don't cross a picket line.
Right. I'm not a scab.
Like, I'm not a scab. Like, that's such a, I mean, you've talked about it from both directions, including the direction that people need to remind themselves that no matter how privileged, and look, of course, like, this is relative to most other jobs. Of course, it's a great job, make a ton of money, have fun, whatever, but you're still literally working for somebody else. You're literally creating a surplus profit, for team owners. And so people need to remind themselves that in all of these sports, these are workers, period, full stop. But then on the other hand, it just seems to me like you can't say, like, obviously it's not the same thing, but bus drivers, which we didn't even get to, but like bus drivers in New York City saying, no, we're not going to participate in helping the police beat the shit out of people protesting. Actually, I'm not going to drive that bus. We're actually not part of this. Our job is to get people to work and school and whatever, not help you beat up on protesters. Part of the reason you can do that because you're in a union, just as you can make sure you're not going back and playing before it's safe because you're in a union. So like, I'm wondering, like, could there also be an opportunity for these players, in addition to all of the really important areas that they're already speaking on, and as you're saying, like the next wave of potentially pushing capital in constructive ways, but to also just be like, like generally we're union guys and we're not scabs, whether we're talking about Major League Baseball or the NBA or whatever, or teachers, janitors, whatever.
Yeah, part of me wonders if the players make that connection themselves, because in many ways, this is their first and only job ever, right? So the concept of what the non-unionized workforce at large around the world is up against, I don't know how conscious they are, because all they know is a union, right? As far as their professional lives. I, again, personally, and I never get tired of saying this, back in the days, I used to work at UPS part-time. And as a part-timer, I was part of the Teamsters Union. And guess what? Even as a pissant part-timer, I could tell my supervisor, go fuck yourself. Right? Like, people don't understand how powerful that is, right? Like, and that's simply because I was part of a union. As a part-timer, I had full medical benefits. As a part-timer, I had to go through about 12 different steps before these fools could tell me I wasn't going to have a job anymore, right? All of these protections that we enjoyed as pissant part-time UPS warehouse employees, people with, let's face it, much bigger jobs than my little sorter job in the UPS warehouse couldn't even fathom the power of what a union affords you, dude, when everybody's working in unison from the drivers to the sorters to the loaders to the unloaders. Like, people just, I don't know, it's hard for people to imagine the reality of it because they just don't see it out in their everyday lives. Like, and I think I don't know how we get a broader labor movement sort of pushed domestically. Like, again, what you're saying is 100% true. Like, I'm LeBron James. I'm a member of a union, and here are the benefits of it. And here's why every single freaking industry should be unionized. I don't know that these guys understand, because they're taught to view their jobs as separate from everybody else, not just from the money they make, but like from the fact that their own fans don't see it that way. Right? Like, the people who actually are consuming the product of the NBA don't see them as working stiffs. They don't see LeBron James no-look passes as, exploitation of his physical work.
But it literally is.
It like, there's no other way to put it, right? Yeah. The contracts that are signed with Turner and that are signed with Disney and ABC and ESPN, that's a manifestation of these guys' physical labor. But people don't see it that way. They don't see it as like, the enjoyment created from watching the dunk as the same as, some carpenter making a great Eames chair or something. Like, they're not making those connections, but those connections are absolutely real. And I would love, man, I'm going to give you guys an example of this. Before the season started, Joe Harris, a white guy that plays for the Brooklyn Nets, he made some flippant remark about, man, I'm pretty happy with my salary. I get paid plenty to play a kid's game. And just like, I just thought that was the most ridiculous pandering ass shit to say. Yes. And you know what? And this was in the backdrop of the China debacle, right? Where people were mad at LeBron James for not defending the virtues of American democracy vis-a-vis his business ties to China, which I thought was laughable. The idea that you would want a black, like, especially in this backdrop right now, the idea that you would want a black person to be the face of the defense of American democracy. Cool, whatever. Joe freaking Harris. Yeah, like, whatever.
It's amazing.
Like, why did you speak out about American democracy?
Okay. Joe freaking Harris basically comes out and says, look, man, I love my salary, blah, 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 blah. Mind you, this fool is a free agent this summer. He's going to be negotiating a new contract. And I guarantee you, him and his agents ain't going to go in there and say, I'm happy with whatever you give me. I get to play a kid's game. But when it's time to pander to the freaking fan base, this dude basically throwing his union members under the bus, And what I didn't see was a bunch of people killing him for it. Like, Mike, you brought this up the other day. I forget what we were talking about. Like, in a normal union, that dude would have got his ass whooped. You know what I'm saying? Like, that dudes would have been like, yo, what the hell is wrong with you? And kicked his ass, right? So I don't think the NBA Players Association understands like that they do come from the tradition of factory worker unions, like straight up and down. The lineage is a straight line to that. I don't know that the players understand that yet.
So I mean, look, I was under the impression that it's the organization that wins championships and not the players.
Oh my goodness, Anna, don't even get me started.
Anna knows how to trigger lies.
Listen, it's
getting back at you for your drunk self.
It's amazing because you know why what Anna's saying is doubly funny is that. And a lot of my black colleagues in the media have pushed back against this throughout the years. There's been sort of this backlash against the fetishization of analytics-based, analysis of the basketball product in NBA front offices and management positions, right? Like, there's been this fetishization of NBA types from Ivy Leagues in the NBA media, and this idea that these are the guys who are really winning the championships. These guys and their algorithms are really the ones that are winning the championships. And and that's part and parcel with that same idea, right? It's this inclination to know it can't possibly be these black dudes from the hood that are doing it, even though the NBA is more suburban now, even the black dudes, than ever before. That's just a fact. Like, most of these guys come from great homes, great backgrounds, great situations. There's this unwillingness to sort of give all the credit of this glorious thing that is global basketball to the black guys. That's what it feels like. That's what it always feels like to me. Some people might say I'm biased or whatever. I would always say, just because I'm biased doesn't mean I'm wrong. Okay, but like, there's just this unwillingness to ever give the credit to the black dudes. Like, you know, a lot of times I even see it when I'm watching Ancient Aliens, and they're telling me that the Egyptians didn't build the pyramids and aliens came down. It's like, black people couldn't have did. They just couldn't have did it. We can't do it. I see it everywhere.
I think, yeah, and also like, I watched Moneyball, you know, which is the Brad Pitt movie about like the remaking of baseball using analytics. And it also just hit me to like, in addition to definitely the component you're talking about, you just can't separate that trend from an overall, like, that's everything else. Like, oh, we could do algorithms. Fuck you. We don't need you to work. Like, we don't need any human expertise. We don't need to acknowledge the contributions of labor of anybody. We've got some like twerps who can algorithm stuff out. It was funny. I had never seen that movie actually until I was on a plane ride back from my last trip to LA, last plane I've been in. And I watched that movie and I was like, you know, it was a really fun movie, but I was real disturbed by what it was actually saying.